Right, so I'll quickly give a recap of what we've done in the last class. So we started off with the chapter, and we got to know that throughout the Middle Ages, the monarchs had absolute power, and there were assemblies comprising of congress were selected to represent the ordinary people, but they had little or no power. And the ordinary people had to pay heavy taxes and had no voice. And it was this control they had over money that eventually overthrew the absolute power of the monarchs. The first upgrading was to rules, in which we learned that in some countries, this shift of power was peaceful. The shift of power from monarchy to the parliament was peaceful, while in others there was an uprising. And then in England, Queen Elizabeth for one did not have a very secure position when she came to the throne, and she would call the parliament for every small decision often. And the people were satisfied until the Stuarts came into power. Then there's this topic of the Stuarts, and it says that the Stuarts came to the throne after the Queen, since she had no peers. And James Stewart was the King of Scotland, and he came to power, and he believed in the divine rights of the king. And he hardly called Parliament four times in a total of his 22 years tenure. And his son Charles the First was even worse. He dismissed the Parliament until he almost went bankrupt, and that's when he called the Parliament once again. And the ordinary people had again no voice of their own and were very vulnerable. That is it, what we did in the last class. Alright, then came the time of long parliament, the topic of long parliament also. This was when the members were strict Protestants, and they were called the Puritans, and they wanted to end the power of the king. Uh, they refused financial help until Charles promised not to levy taxes without their permission. To this condition, Charles agreed to agreed to what they said, but he had no intentions to obey it. Instead, he prepared an army in London to fight the Parliament. After this, the topic of civil war is basically there in your book, and there was the Parliament also raised an army under their leader. The leader was Oliver Cromwell, and they fought and captured the king. Obviously, Charles the First was captured, and the king was given a condition. He was told that either share control in order to remain the king, or you will be dismissed. Charles refused, and he escaped, and he restarted the war. And once again, he was defeated. He was recaptured and executed. And England, then, after his execution, was declared as a republic or a commonwealth with the president as Oliver Cromwell. All right. So then, moving on towards the Commonwealth, after England was declared as the Commonwealth, and the members of the Parliament ruled pretty nicely until a stricter group of members gained control. They closed down theaters, they made dance, horse racing, gambling illegal, and it was stopped. And the people in England became miserable. Cromwell died in 1658, and he was succeeded by his son, who was least interested to rule. So, after this period came the Restoration in 1660. What was the Restoration? There was a strong movement to restore monarchy. And the son of Charles I, Charles II, was called from his exile in Holland, and he was called to rule England, and he had little power. Uh, because obviously there was such a lot of things that had already happened. So obviously his power decreased. Now the Glorious Revolution and the Bill of Rights. Now, Charles II was succeeded by James II, his brother, and James II wanted the same power as it was enjoyed by their ancestors. Now, he was obviously he came to the throne, he tried getting all those rights that were enjoyed by his ancestors, but he was driven out 3 years later in the Glorious Revolution. Now, why was the Glorious Revolution called the Glorious Revolution? It was because there was no bloodshed. Um, Soon after, Mary, James II's daughter, her name was Mary. She married William, and she came to the throne and was made to sign the Bill of Rights. So Mary was made to sign the Bill of Rights, and the Bill of Rights was basically a document which would protect the rights of the people. We had certain conditions that were to be abided by the obviously the monarchs. Uh, for example, it said the Bill of Rights said that the monarchs were not allowed to abolish or alter laws made by the parliament, and that there were no taxes that could be levied upon the people without the permission of the parliament. And there are other clauses as well that are mentioned in the book. So we'll read those clauses as well. So this is all that we've done in class. We started from the Long Parliament, we moved on to the Civil War, the Commonwealth, the Restoration, and later the Glorious Revolution and the Bill of Rights. Okay. So I'm quickly going to explain the homework that is given to you people. The homework, there are 2 questions that are given. The first one being describe how Queen Elizabeth I and the Parliament got along together. So in this, you people have to mention how Queen Elizabeth I was used to call the Parliament every now and then, and how her policies were used to coincide with, uh, you know, the Parliament, or whatever the Parliament used to say. And in the second question, it says define the following terms: democracy, monarchy, and nationalism. So we did democracy as well in the previous class. We've done monarchy today, and we've done nationalism as well. So just in case if you people missed out on anything, you can ask me in the next question.